Welcome to Conversations with Crosswinds Counseling. I'm your host, Curtis Smith. Every week on this podcast, we talk about all things mental health, sometimes stress or anxiety. Perhaps you're burned out. Well, this is the podcast for you. We sit down with the wonderful counselors at Crosswinds Counseling and have a great conversation every week. Let's dive into this week's episode. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Conversations with Crosswinds Counseling. I'm Curtis Smith, your host. Grant Anderson is back on the podcast today. He is the clinical manager for Crosswinds Counseling in Indianapolis. Grant, thanks for being back.
Thank you for having me.
Grant, today we are talking about a really hot topic, something that comes up all the time, I feel like, and that's technology and screen time. These are topics and conversations that as adults we have, as kids we have, as parents of kids we have all the time. There's so much that is good about technology. There's so much connectivity that's happened in our world because of it. And yet there are concerns and there are ways that technology can negatively impact our mental health. So when you, as a therapist, think about technology and the impact it's having on our world, where do you start? What comes to mind?
Yeah. I think one of the most common places to start is what are the boundaries that you have with screens and your technology, whether that's looking at it from a personal individual perspective or in the home as a family. Was it 2007 we had the coming out of the iPhone or the smartphone,
Right.
And that's the same year that Netflix kind of dropped it. Our world really shifted dramatically then.
Yes.
And our access to information and social media just exploded. And the research, although we're still looking into it because we're really looking at longitudinal studies and we haven't had enough time for that yet, but we're seeing so much change in our attention span on how well we focus. If you just look at the social media platforms out there today, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, a lot of them are being set up now. Even content creators are specifically knowing what time frame of seconds they have to make a video content just for our attention span to actually want to watch it, because we don't want to sit here anymore and watch an 8-minute video. We want a 20-second clip of something, and it's not because we're spending less time on screens. When the research is showing that, was it 8 to 12 year olds back in 2019, so this is 5 years ago, we're spending almost over 4 hours a day on screens. And it was 13 to 18 year olds are spending almost 7.5 hours a day on screens, and that does not include school time or school work on screens.
Wow.
So it's just how many times we're touching our phone and looking at iPads and things like that.
Yeah. Having said all that, today we want you to watch an 8-minute video.
Absolutely.
Because we're doing one right now. But the attention span thing is real, and the impact on our kids. I mean, 7.5 hours, even if it's only 4 to 7.5 hours in a day, I feel like I couldn't cram that much time into my non-work day to be on a screen, or my non-school day if I was in high school. And yet it's happening. Our kids are so connected. So when you are working with clients, whether it be a kid themselves or a parent who's concerned about their kid going through technology struggles, how do you help them start to reverse some of those patterns in their lives?
Right. I think the first step is to look at the relationship that the child has to technology or to the screen. Now, I would put this on the side, though. It doesn't mean that adults are any better. We have just as many problems, and our relationship to technology is just as messed up. But when you're looking at your child and how do I help my child navigate this, the research is pretty clear that children under the age of 5, really, it's not helpful in a lot of educational aspects yet. As the research starts to show a trend as it moves up for older kids that they can learn through technology or through screens. But even then, they're recommending 2 hours kind of at most per day. That a relationship with technology is a good sign of where the child's at with how they see screens. If they're emotionally attached and there's behavioral problems or emotional breakdowns when they can't have the screens or can't have the TV or whatever they're looking at, the video games, it's a good sign that something's not working and it's not healthy. And so being able to put family boundaries, what's expectations with that is huge. One of the biggest questions that I've seen in the last, say, 10 years from parents is, when should I get my kids a smartphone? What age is appropriate for that? And I still don't have a great answer for it after 10 years, because I think a little bit depends on the parenting strategy
Right.
and how they see technology in their home.
It probably depends on the maturity level of the kid. Are they
Absolutely.
ready to handle that as well? Something you said there triggered this thought. Oh, I'll bet a lot of parents come in concerned about their kids' screen time and their kids' relationship with technology, and they're not doing that great themselves. Because as adults, you mentioned that we get sucked into the phone too, and we can spend too much time. How do you help the parent who brings a kid in because of technology struggles, and yet as a therapist, you identify maybe part of the problem here is you're not as connected to your kid as you think you are because you're getting sucked into technology too much?
Well, one of the good things to notice, I guess, is I've had families that come and tell me this, and as a parent of a young family, I think I've experienced the same thing. And it's kids will let you know what we're afraid to see. And so, a child saying, "Mommy, Daddy, put your phone down. I want to talk," or I need all your attention, and we're still sitting there glued to our phones, is a great sign that we're not present with our kids when we're on technology sometimes.
Yeah. How do you help the adult who would push back and say, well, I'm on my phone for work. I'm not just playing games. Sometimes I play a game or sometimes I scroll around, but I need my phone. I need my laptop for work. I've got to be on them even in the evening. Work can be never ending. I know school can feel that way for kids too, but work really can be never ending. How do you help parents get better about setting boundaries on them, on their own usage and on their own lives so that they can then pour into others in a better way?
You kind of hit it on there. It's the boundary setting that's important, right? So what we had before 2007 is if we, it's not that we didn't have problems with screens, it was harder to get a hold of the screen. It wasn't sitting in our pocket.
Yeah.
And so being able, go home or turn on a TV was a whole different level of boundary than just pulled out of our pocket. And so helping parents recognize sometimes it's good to put your phone down when you come home. Maybe leave it in a certain area, leave it in a certain room. Don't bring it into the bathroom. Don't bring it into the bedroom. Can really help set appropriate, healthy boundaries. And the kids see that as well when you do that modeling.
That's hard.
Yes.
Do you see clients who really struggle with this? Is this a big stumbling block in today's world? I mean, you're nodding along. It seems like it is. You mentioned the iPhone's been out now for 17 years. Maybe not long enough to get great generational data on what that's doing, but long enough that we're all so used to having it in our pocket. It's such easy 24/7 access. I assume it's just a big part of a lot of conversations you have with clients.
Absolutely. It goes right into emotional, mental health. The technology itself can hurt your mental health. If you're working Monday through Friday and then your weekend is all just spent in looking at a screen and scrolling social media, the research doesn't show you come back refreshed on a Monday morning. It shows that you're just as depleted if that's the way you're going to spend your weekend.
I bet some people would argue even worse, not just as depleted, more depleted, not healthy. Grant, as we close out today, any final thoughts on how to set boundaries, parameters, how to help yourself, how to help your kids in this world, because it's not going away.
Yeah.
The technology, what we've seen over these last 17 years and even more is that it will continue to progress. It will continue to make itself more needed and more useful in our lives. So what final thoughts and tips would you have for people who are in this battle?
Yeah. One of the things that I recommend is sometimes a technology fast for a day. So having a family say, this Saturday, no one's going to get on technology. We're going to do it together, and we're going to see how it feels. And it really challenges just the essence of just being and sitting and just talking, interacting. Something that's not easy to do when we constantly want some type of background noise going on.
That's a great tip. I think I might actually try that. Like, that feels refreshing, just thinking about what would I do for a full day if I didn't have to look at my phone. I don't know. I might try that one. Grant, thanks so much for being with us on the podcast today. Thank you as well. If this is an issue that you would like to talk to a therapist about, or you have a kid who needs some help in dealing with that technology problem that we all have today, you can go to crosswindscounseling.org to find Grant or any of the wonderful counselors we have at Crosswinds Counseling. Again, thanks for being with us on the podcast. We'll see you next time. Thanks for watching Conversations with Crosswinds Counseling today. Don't forget to like and subscribe to get more of our podcast. And you can comment in the section below. Perhaps you could share what you'd like us to discuss in future episodes. We've got new episodes coming out every week. So we'll see you next time on Conversations with Crosswinds Counseling.